My best friend stood in front of my entire office and accepted the promotion I had spent 2 years earning. Then she thanked my fiancé, not for supporting her, for helping her survive the woman who tried to ruin her. That woman was me. My best friend stood in front of my entire office and accepted the promotion I had spent 2 years earning. Then she thanked my fiancé, not for supporting her, for helping her survive the woman who tried to ruin her. That woman was me. I remember standing near the coffee bar with a paper cup shaking in my hand while everyone clapped for her. My boss, Denise, was smiling like she had just made the most inspiring decision in company history. My coworkers were whispering. My fiancé, Mark, wouldn't even look at me. And my best friend Lauren stood there, in her cream blazer, tears in her eyes, acting like she had just survived a war. She said, "I know some people didn't want me here. Some people tried to make me feel small, but I'm grateful leadership saw the truth." Then her eyes flicked toward me, just for 1 second. That was when I realized this wasn't just about a promotion. This was a setup, and everyone in that room had already chosen a side. 2 years earlier, Lauren was the friend I trusted more than anyone. We met in college, stayed close after graduation, and when I got my job at a marketing firm in Charlotte, I was the one who helped her get hired. She had been struggling then. Her last company downsized her. Her rent was late, and she kept saying things like, "I feel like I'm falling behind everyone." So when an assistant strategist role opened on my team, I recommended her. I coached her for the interview. I rewrote her resume. I even told Denise, "Lauren is smart, loyal, and hardworking. She just needs someone to give her a real chance." That sentence still makes me sick. At first, everything was great. Lauren was grateful in this almost embarrassing way. She brought me coffee. She told people I was the reason she had a career. She posted pictures of us on Instagram with captions like, "Women supporting women." Then small things started happening. A client complimented a campaign idea I had pitched, and Lauren jumped in with, "I'm so glad you liked where we took it." A report I spent all weekend building ended up in Denise's inbox from Lauren's email. When I asked her about it, she widened her eyes and said, "Oh my God, I thought we were both sending it. Did that come off weird?" The first time I let it go. The second time, I corrected it politely. The third time, she cried in the bathroom and told me I was making her feel unsafe at work. That word became her weapon, unsafe. Anytime I disagreed with her, she was unsafe. Anytime I questioned something, she was overwhelmed. Anytime I set a boundary, I was not being supportive. And because Lauren was soft-spoken, pretty, and always on the verge of tears, people believed her. Meanwhile, I was direct. I was organized. I asked questions. I kept receipts. So I became intense. The first big crack happened at my engagement party. Mark and I had been together for 4 years. He was charming in that effortless way that made strangers like him immediately. He worked in real estate, always wore expensive watches he couldn't quite afford, and had a talent for making every room feel like he belonged in it. My parents loved him. Lauren loved him too. At least, that was what I thought. That night, we had a small party at my parents' house. Nothing fancy. Backyard lights, catered tacos, cheap champagne, cousins arguing over music. Lauren arrived late wearing a red dress that looked more like something for a cocktail lounge than a family engagement party. She hugged me first, then she hugged Mark. A little too long. I noticed, but I told myself not to be insecure. Later, I found them in the kitchen laughing over something on his phone. When I walked in, Mark locked the screen fast. Too fast. I said, "What's funny?" Lauren smiled and said, "Nothing. Mark was just showing me this awful house listing." Mark added, "You'd hate it. All gray floors and fake marble." It was such a normal answer that I felt stupid for asking. But later that night, when Lauren hugged me goodbye, she whispered, "You're so lucky. Mark really gets you." I remember thinking it was a sweet thing to say. Now I know it was a warning. 3 months before the promotion announcement, Denise told me privately that I was the front runner for senior strategy lead. She said, "You've carried the Horizon account almost by yourself. The partners noticed." I cried in my car after that meeting. Not dramatic sobbing, just quiet relief. I had worked late nights, missed birthdays, answered client emails from urgent care once when I had the flu. That promotion meant a salary jump, leadership track, and enough money to finally pay off the credit card debt I had been hiding from my parents. I told Mark first. He kissed my forehead and said, "That's my girl." Then I told Lauren. She went completely still for half a second. Then she screamed and hugged me. "Oh my God, you deserve it," she said. "No one deserves it more." But after that, she changed. She started asking oddly specific questions. "Did Denise say when they're announcing? Is it official? Did she mention whether HR had concerns?" That last question made me pause. I said, "Why would HR have concerns?" Lauren laughed too quickly. "I don't know. Corporate stuff. You know how they are." A week later, Denise became distant. She stopped inviting me into certain meetings. She started asking me to send written summaries of conversations I'd already had verbally. Then one afternoon, HR scheduled a meeting with me titled Workplace Conduct Check-In. My stomach dropped. The HR woman, Patrice, was polite but cold. She said, "We've received some concerns about your communication style." I asked, "Concerns from who?" She said, "We're not able to disclose that." I said, "What exactly am I being accused of?" She folded her hands and said, "Creating an environment where a colleague feels intimidated, undermined, and unable to contribute." I actually laughed because I thought she had to be joking. She was not. They had screenshots, Slack messages where I asked Lauren to update deadlines, emails where I corrected client information, a calendar invite I had titled Fix Horizon Budget Deck, which apparently sounded aggressive. And then Patrice showed me one message I had supposedly sent Lauren. It said, "You wouldn't even have this job without me, so stop acting like you're on my level." My face went hot. I said, "I never sent that." Patrice looked at me like every guilty person probably says that. I pulled out my phone. The message wasn't there. She said, "Screenshots can be submitted when messages are later deleted." I said, "Then check the server logs." She blinked. "I'm sorry?" "Check the Slack export. Check metadata. Check anything, because I did not send that." Patrice said they would look into it. 2 days later, I found out Lauren had been moved off my direct project for her comfort. But somehow, she was still presenting pieces of my work. That's when the gaslighting became obvious. People stopped eating lunch with me. Coworkers went quiet when I walked into the break room. One junior associate, Maya, accidentally told me, "I just think maybe you should apologize, even if you didn't mean it that way." I said, "Mean what?" She looked panicked and said, "I shouldn't have said anything." That night, I told Mark everything. I expected him to be angry for me. Instead, he got very calm. He said, "Babe, maybe you come across harsher than you realize." I stared at him. "You think I sent those messages?" "No," he said quickly. "I'm just saying perception matters." Perception. That was the second weapon. Lauren had unsafe. Mark had perception. My mother had keep the peace. Because when I told my mom, she sighed and said, "Sweetheart, sometimes women compete in ways they don't even understand. Don't make this bigger than it is." But it was already big. It was eating my life. Then came the bank alert. A charge for $4,800 hit my credit card from a boutique hotel in Asheville. I had not been to Asheville. I called the bank shaking and disputed it. The representative told me the card had been manually entered, not swiped. Then she asked, "Do you recognize the email used for the booking?" She read it out loud. It was Mark's secondary email. I sat on my bedroom floor for almost 20 minutes without moving. When Mark came home, I asked him calmly, "Why was your email used to book a hotel on my credit card?" He froze. Then he did something I will never forget. He looked disappointed in me. Not guilty, disappointed. He said, "I didn't want to tell you because I knew you'd spiral." I said, "Tell me what?" He claimed it was for a surprise weekend trip for us. He said he used my car by accident because it was saved in his laptop from when we booked flights the year before. I said, "Then why didn't you tell me when the charge posted?" He rubbed his face. "Because lately everything becomes a fight with you." There it was again. Me, my reaction, my instability, my problem. The next morning I called the hotel. The front desk woman wouldn't give me much, but she confirmed the stay had already happened. 2 guests, 1 king bed. My hands went numb. I asked if they had security footage. She said no, not without legal request. Then she said, softly, "But there was a spa package added under the name Lauren Whitaker." I didn't cry. That scared me more. I just thanked her, hung up, and opened my laptop. For the first time in weeks, I stopped reacting emotionally and started documenting. I downloaded every email, every Slack thread, every calendar invite, every shared document revision. I requested my credit card's full fraud report. I saved the hotel charge details. I checked our phone bill and found Mark had exchanged hundreds of texts with Lauren over the past 2 months, mostly late at night. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I checked Mark's iPad. He had left it synced to his messages. I found the thread immediately because Lauren's contact was saved under LW Work. The first message I opened was from Lauren. She still thinks she's getting the promotion. It's honestly sad. Mark replied, "Let her. It'll hit harder." My chest felt like it cracked. I kept scrolling. There were selfies, hotel plans, jokes about me being too obsessed with work to notice anything. And then I found the part that made everything click. Lauren had not just been sleeping with my fiancé. She had been using him to access my laptop. Mark knew my password. He had used it to open my work files while I slept. He sent Lauren drafts, client notes, strategy documents, and screenshots of my private messages. One message from Lauren said, "Can you make the Slack screenshot look like it came from her account?" Mark replied, "I already did. Just don't overuse it." I ran to the bathroom and threw up. That was the moment I understood the real shape of the betrayal. This wasn't an affair that accidentally crossed into work. This was a coordinated theft, and I was supposed to look crazy when I fought back. For 2 days, I said nothing. Do you know how hard it is to sleep next to someone after reading messages where he laughs about destroying your life? Mark kissed me goodnight. I stared at the wall. Lauren texted me, "Thinking of you. I know work has been heavy lately. Coffee soon?" I typed, "Sure." Then I deleted it. I needed proof no one could talk their way out of. So I hired a forensic IT consultant using the emergency savings I had been afraid to touch. His name was Aaron, and he looked like a tired dad who had seen every version of workplace stupidity imaginable. I gave him my laptop, screenshots, phone records, and exported files. He called me the next day and said, "You were right." Just those 3 words almost made me collapse. He found remote logins from Mark's home office computer. He found edited image files used to create the fake Slack messages. He found metadata showing Lauren had copied sections of my Horizon strategy deck before uploading them under her own name. Then he said, "There's more." Apparently, someone had logged into my payroll portal. My direct deposit information had been viewed, but not changed. My tax documents had been downloaded. That did not make sense until I found the apartment application. Lauren had used my income documents as a guarantor file for a luxury apartment she couldn't qualify for. My signature was forged, and Mark had been listed as her emergency contact. I remember laughing then. Not because it was funny, because my brain had nowhere else to put the rage. I had 3 choices. I could confront them privately and watch them lie. I could go to HR and risk them burying it to protect the company, or I could let them walk into their own trap. So I waited. The promotion announcement was scheduled for Friday at 3 p.m. By then, I already knew they were giving it to Lauren. Denise had accidentally forwarded me a meeting agenda with Lauren's name under Senior Strategy Lead Transition. I stared at it for a long time. Then I forwarded everything to an employment attorney. He told me not to confront anyone at work. He told me to gather, preserve, and report through the proper channels. But then he said something else. If they publicly defame you, don't interrupt. Let them finish. So I did. On Friday, I stood by the coffee bar while Lauren accepted my promotion. She gave her little speech. She thanked Mark. She implied I had abused her. And when everyone clapped, I walked back to my desk and sent one email. Not to the whole company. To HR, Denise, the managing partners, corporate legal, and my attorney copied. Subject line: Formal report of workplace misconduct, data theft, defamation, and forgery. Attached were 47 files. Forensic report, fake screenshot metadata, login records, document revision history, phone records, hotel charge dispute, apartment application, messages between Mark and Lauren. And at the bottom, I wrote, "I am requesting immediate preservation of all internal communications, Slack logs, access records, and promotion decision documents related to myself and Lauren Whitaker." And then I closed my laptop. 10 minutes later, Denise walked out of her office pale. 5 minutes after that, Patrice from HR rushed past my desk without looking at me. Lauren was still at her new office doorway accepting congratulations when her laptop suddenly locked. She clicked again, then her smile fell. I didn't say a word. That silence was the only revenge I needed in that moment. But the real explosion happened at home. Mark was already there when I arrived, pacing in the kitchen. He said, "What did you do?" Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Can we talk?" What did you do? I put my purse down and said, "I told the truth." His face twisted. "You sent private messages to your company?" I said, "You used my password to steal confidential documents for your girlfriend." He shouted, "Don't call her that." And that confirmed something in me that still needed confirmation. I said, "Get out." He laughed. "This is my apartment too." "No," I said, "it's my apartment. Your name is not on the lease because your credit was too bad, remember?" For the first time all night, he looked afraid. Then he switched tactics. He cried. He said Lauren manipulated him. He said he felt neglected. He said I cared more about work than our relationship. He said Lauren understood how lonely he felt. I asked, "Was forging my signature lonely too?" He stopped crying. I said, "Was stealing my tax documents emotional neglect?" He whispered, "You're trying to ruin my life." And I said, "No, Mark. I'm finally refusing to let you ruin mine." He packed 2 bags that night, not neatly, angrily. He took the espresso machine I bought him and left the engagement photos on the floor. An hour later, Lauren called me 17 times. I didn't answer. Then she texted, "You're making a huge mistake." Then, "You don't understand what you're doing." Then, "Please don't destroy me over a man." That last one almost made me break. Over a man? She had stolen my work, my reputation, my money, my documents, my peace, and my future. And she wanted to reduce it to jealousy? So I replied with one sentence. "You should have thought of that before you used my social security number." She stopped texting. The investigation moved fast after that. Corporate legal put Lauren on administrative leave the same day. Mark was contacted because some of the stolen files were client confidential. Denise called me into a meeting with HR and looked like she had aged 10 years. She said, "I owe you an apology." I said, "You owe me more than that." The room went silent. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't crying. I was exhausted. I said, "You accepted screenshots without verifying them. You removed me from my own project. You rewarded the person stealing my work. And you let her publicly imply I abused her in front of my coworkers." Denise looked down. Patrice said, "We are reviewing procedural failures." I said, "You should." For once, nobody called me intense. Nobody called me emotional. Nobody told me to watch my tone. Within 2 weeks, Lauren was fired. Not quietly. The company didn't announce details, but people knew. People always know enough. Maya, the junior associate, came to my desk crying and apologized for believing the rumors. Another coworker admitted Lauren had told people I was obsessed with controlling her career. Someone else said Mark had visited Lauren at the office twice when I was in client meetings. Every apology felt strange. I appreciated them, but I also wanted to ask, why was it so easy to believe I was cruel? Be honest. Would you forgive people who only believed you after the evidence became impossible to ignore? Because I still don't know. The apartment fraud became a separate legal nightmare. The property manager confirmed Lauren's application had been flagged after my attorney contacted them. She had not actually moved in yet, but she had submitted forged documents. My credit was frozen, police reports were filed, my bank issued a fraud investigation. Mark tried to call my parents. That was its own disaster. My mom, who had told me to keep the peace, called me crying. She said, "He told us you're having some kind of breakdown." I said, "Mom, I'm sending you something." I forwarded her only 3 screenshots, not the intimate ones, just Mark saying, "Letter, it'll hit harder." Lauren asking about the fake Slack screenshot. Mark confirming he logged into my laptop. My mom called back 10 minutes later. She was sobbing so hard she could barely speak. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have believed you." That hurt more than I expected, because I wanted to be mature and say it was okay, but it wasn't. So I said, "I needed you, and you made me feel dramatic." She cried harder. My dad drove over that night and changed my locks. He didn't ask a lot of questions. He just brought a toolbox, hugged me in my kitchen, and said, "You don't have to defend yourself to people who failed you." That was the first time I cried in front of anyone. The final confrontation with Lauren happened by accident. 3 weeks after she was fired, I saw her at a grocery store. No makeup, sweatpants, hair in a messy bun. She looked smaller somehow, but not sorry. She saw me near the frozen food aisle and walked straight toward me like she had been waiting for the scene. She said, "I hope you're happy." I looked at her and said, "I'm getting there." Her mouth tightened. "You took everything from me." I actually laughed. I said, "Lauren, you tried to become me because you hated your own life." Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't trust them anymore. She said, "You always had everything. The job, the family, the ring, the confidence. I was drowning and you kept shining it in my face." That sentence stayed with me because it was the closest she ever came to honesty. I said, "I helped you get hired." She said, "You helped me so you could feel above me." And there it was, the resentment under every hug, the jealousy under every compliment, the poison under every "I'm so proud of you." I said, "No, I helped you because I loved you." For 1 second, her face changed. Then she said, "Mark loved me." I shook my head. "No, he used you to hurt me, and you used him to climb over me. That's not love. That's just two selfish people making each other feel less guilty." She slapped me. Not hard enough to injure me, but loud enough that 3 people turned. I didn't slap her back. I just pulled out my phone and said, "Do you want to add assault to the list?" She walked away shaking. That was the last time I saw her in person. The company offered me the promotion a month later. I didn't accept it immediately. Denise looked shocked when I said I needed time. The old me would have grabbed it because I had earned it. The new me asked for back pay, a written correction placed in my personnel file, removal of all disciplinary notes connected to Lauren's false complaint, and a formal acknowledgement that my work had been misattributed. Denise said she would have to speak with leadership. I said, "Great, I'll wait." 3 days later, they agreed to everything. I accepted, not because the company deserved my loyalty, because I deserved what I built. Mark sent one final email after I blocked him everywhere. The subject line was, "I'm sorry." It was long, rambling, full of therapy words he had clearly Googled. He said he was ashamed. He said Lauren made him feel admired. He said he panicked when the affair started and kept digging himself deeper. Then he wrote, "Part of me wanted you to find out." I stared at that line for a long time. Then I deleted the email. Some people confess only after they are caught because they still want credit for honesty. He didn't get that from me. The engagement ring was returned to the jeweler. I used the partial refund to pay my attorney. Lauren's professional reputation collapsed faster than mine ever had. She tried to post on LinkedIn about toxic workplaces silencing women, but someone must have warned her because it disappeared within an hour. Mark moved in with a friend and, according to mutual acquaintances, started telling people he had been caught in the middle. That almost made me laugh. Caught in the middle of my laptop at midnight, apparently. My friendships changed after everything. Some people came back, some didn't. And the hardest lesson was realizing closure does not always feel like peace. Sometimes closure feels like sitting alone in your apartment, eating cereal for dinner, realizing you won, but still lost the version of yourself who trusted easily. But slowly, life got quieter. My credit recovered, my name was cleared, my work was mine again. My parents started showing up differently. My mom stopped giving advice and started listening. My dad still checked my locks every time he visited, even though he knew they were fine. And one afternoon, 6 months later, I walked into a client meeting as senior strategy lead. The Horizon client shook my hand and said, "We're excited to finally work directly with the person behind the campaign." Finally. That one word almost broke me. Because for so long, people had taken pieces of me and called them theirs. My labor, my kindness, my trust, my patience, my silence. But not anymore. I used to think revenge meant destroying the people who hurt you. Now I think real revenge is letting the truth stand up straight after everyone tried to bury it. Lauren wanted my life because she thought mine looked easy. Mark wanted my loyalty because it made his lies comfortable. And I wanted so badly to be loved that I ignored every warning sign until my whole world was on fire. So if you're listening to this, and someone keeps calling you dramatic every time you notice the truth, please hear me. You are not crazy for seeing what they hoped you would miss. You are not bitter for protecting what you built. And sometimes, The most powerful thing you can do is stop begging people to believe you and let the evidence speak louder than their lies. The saddest part was losing the people I loved, but the strongest part was realizing I never lost myself.